The crown didn't explode in public. There was no shouting. No scandalous press conference. No dramatic royal showdown. Instead, something simply disappeared. And according to whispers from inside royal circles, by the end of one quiet administrative review, Meghan Markle allegedly lost access to one of the monarchy's most symbolic privileges, the royal jewelry vault. No announcement. No explanation. Just silence. But insiders say the most chilling part wasn't the restriction itself. It was the belief that Princess Anne made sure the decision could never be undone. Because inside the monarchy, power rarely arrives with emotion. It arrives through protocol. And once protocol changes, history changes with it. Before we go further, subscribe now because this story reveals a side of the royal family the public almost never sees, the cold machinery behind the crown itself. Most people think royal jewels are about glamour. Diamonds. Tiaras. Historic necklaces worth millions. But inside palace tradition, those objects represent something far more important. Trust. The public sees luxury. The monarchy sees legitimacy. Every tiara worn at a state banquet, every brooch displayed on a royal tour, every ceremonial jewel appearing beside the crown sends a message. You belong here. You represent the institution. You carry the future. And according to royal commentators, that's exactly why this alleged restriction became so explosive behind palace walls. Because this was never really about jewelry. It was about whether Meghan still belonged inside the monarchy's future at all. For years, the royal family operated on careful ambiguity. Even after Prince Harry and Meghan stepped away from official duties, there remained a strange gray zone surrounding their place within the institution. Publicly, the language stayed respectful. Doors appeared partially open. There was always the possibility, at least in theory, that relationships could stabilize over time. But palace systems don't operate on emotions. They operate on categories. Active. Inactive. Working royal. Non-working royal. And according to multiple interpretations circulating among royal observers, those categories slowly became more rigid behind the scenes. Not overnight. Quietly. One adjustment at a time. One ceremonial expectation disappearing after another. One absence beginning to feel permanent. And eventually, insiders claim something changed. The palace allegedly stopped treating distance as temporary. It started treating it as structural. That distinction matters more than most people realize. Because in monarchy, ceremonial access follows institutional proximity. The closer you stand to the crown's active future, the more symbolic trust you receive. The further away you move, the more complicated everything becomes. And no royal figure represents that philosophy more clearly than Princess Anne. And has spent decades building a reputation unlike anyone else inside the royal family. She rarely explains herself publicly. Rarely seeks attention. Rarely participates in emotional royal narratives. But behind palace walls, commentators often describe her as one of the monarchy's strongest defenders of continuity. Where others negotiate. And finalizes. Where others soften decisions. And protects protocol. And according to royal whispers, that reputation became critical once conversations surrounding ceremonial access intensified. Because this allegedly wasn't framed internally as punishment. It was framed as classification. That single distinction changes the entire story. Punishment sounds emotional. Classification sounds permanent. And permanence inside royal institutions carries enormous weight. Sources close to royal commentary circles suggest some palace staff expected flexibility over time. Maybe temporary restrictions. Maybe symbolic compromises. Maybe eventual accommodation. But whispers of a closure with no clear pathway back reportedly stunned even seasoned observers. Because monarchy survives through symbols. And symbols only work when people understand their boundaries. That's where the real tension allegedly began. Some voices inside royal circles reportedly believed modern monarchy needed adaptability, that preserving family connections mattered, that symbolism could stretch without breaking. But others saw danger in that approach. Because once exceptions become normal, rules stop feeling real. And when rules stop feeling real, institutions lose clarity. That concern became especially important during a period already filled with instability. Public criticism, media pressure, institutional uncertainty. King Charles navigating enormous expectations. And according to palace interpretations, that environment forced difficult questions into the open. If someone steps away from royal service, should ceremonial privileges remain unchanged? If representation changes, should symbolic access stay permanent? If public identity continues but institutional responsibility shifts, where exactly does the line exist? No official statement answered those questions. But according to insiders, palace systems answered quietly through procedure. Because inside monarchy, procedure is power. Not speeches. Not interviews. Not emotions. Procedure. That's why this alleged episode feels so unsettling to royal watchers. No cameras captured it. No official declaration confirmed it. Yet many insiders describe it as one of the most symbolic moments of the modern royal era. Because the restriction allegedly revealed something deeper about how the monarchy truly operates. The crown does not organize itself around feelings. It organizes itself around survival. And survival requires continuity. That philosophy can appear cold from the outside. But institutions designed to survive centuries rarely prioritize comfort over structure. Which is why attention reportedly shifted toward Princess and once discussions reached a critical point. Observers often describe Anne's influence in one specific way. Not emotional enforcement. Procedural enforcement. No dramatic confrontation. No visible hostility. Just questions. What is the precedent? What protects continuity? What survives after today? That approach creates a strange kind of pressure because there's nothing obvious to fight against. No villain. No explosive argument. Just systems slowly aligning around conclusions that begin to feel inevitable. According to royal interpretations, administrative reviews allegedly became more serious during this period. Not investigations into personalities. Examinations of categories. Who actively represents the institution? Who currently serves it? Who carries its ceremonial symbolism forward? And once those questions enter palace machinery, outcomes reportedly stop feeling temporary. That's the terrifying thing about royal protocol. It doesn't need dramatic announcements. It only needs repetition. An invitation quietly disappears. A ceremonial expectation changes. Access narrows. And eventually people realize something once normal no longer exists. Royal insiders often say exclusion inside monarchy is rarely announced. It becomes visible through absence. That may explain why this story continues generating fascination. Because it challenges modern assumptions about power itself. People expect royal conflict to look dramatic. But monarchy prefers something quieter. Gradual permanence. No emotional ending. Just institutional adjustment. And according to palace commentary, that's exactly what allegedly happened here. Not removal. Reclassification. That word changes everything. Because removal feels temporary. Reclassification feels structural. Suddenly, the issue stops being about Meghan personally. It becomes about the future shape of the monarchy itself. Who represents it? Who carries its symbols? Who embodies continuity moving forward? And according to many royal observers, the next generation increasingly shapes those answers. Prince William and Princess Catherine are often portrayed as representatives of a more consolidated monarchy. Smaller. More defined. Less flexible. More controlled. Not necessarily harsher, just clearer. Within that framework, ceremonial symbols become even more important because they communicate institutional trust. And trust, according to palace logic, cannot appear negotiable. That philosophy reportedly intensified pressure surrounding symbolic access. Because once boundaries blur publicly, coherence weakens internally. And monarchy depends heavily on coherence. The institution survives partly because its symbols maintain meaning. The moment those meanings become uncertain, questions spread faster than answers. That's why some observers believe this alleged restriction carried emotional consequences far beyond the jewelry itself. It allegedly signaled something larger. The monarchy deciding where its future begins, and where its past ends. That realization creates an uncomfortable question at the center of everything. Can someone remain emotionally connected to the monarchy while becoming institutionally distant from it? Royal history suggests the answer is complicated. Because the crown remembers relationships, but organizes itself around continuity. And continuity sometimes demands separation without ever openly declaring it. That may be the most haunting part of this entire story. No one publicly slammed the door. The door may have simply stopped opening. No speeches followed. No dramatic victory. No visible confrontation. Just silence. The kind of silence royal institutions often mistake for resolution. But silence inside monarchy can carry enormous meaning. Because over time, silence becomes precedent. And precedent becomes tradition. Then eventually, tradition becomes reality. That's how royal systems preserve themselves. Not through explosive acts of power. Through repetition. Through boundaries that remain in place long enough to stop feeling temporary. Until one day people stop asking whether things will return to the way they were. Because they begin realizing this may already be the new shape of the monarchy. And maybe that's the final lesson hidden underneath this entire story. The public searches for dramatic endings. Royal history rarely provides them. Instead, it leaves behind quieter things. Invisible decisions. Altered expectations. Boundaries no one announces but everyone eventually understands. Because in the oldest corners of monarchy, jewels may sparkle. But trust is the treasure that decides who receives the key. And once that trust changes, the crown rarely needs to say a word. It simply moves forward. If you enjoyed this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the monarchy made the right decision? Or do you believe tradition has finally become colder than family itself? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep royal stories you won't hear anywhere else.